So the Correctional Services Department is today expected to announce whether former President Jacob Zuma will return to prison or not. So last month, the Constitutional Court dismissed Zuma's application for leave to appeal a Supreme Court of Appeal judgment, which had said that his medical parole was illegal. In 2021, the former president was sentenced to 15 months in jail for defying a court order to testify at the state capture inquiry. He was released on parole after serving only 2 months. The decision to send him back to jail sparked some protests, mainly in his home province of KwaZulu-Natal, as well as Gauteng. More than 300 people were killed and dozens more were arrested. The former president returned to South Africa from Russia, where he was seeking medical treatment for some time. We speak to Newzroom Afrika's Ziyanda Ngcobo in terms of what to expect, or at least what more we know at this hour, Ziyanda.
Well, at this stage, we're not sure what time the Correctional Services Department will be making its announcement. But suffice to say that whatever they say, there will be lots of political implications, regarding this decision. So you remember that when the Constitutional Court refused the former president his application for leave to appeal an earlier Supreme Court of Appeal judgment, which basically said that, the decision to grant a medical parole was unlawful and invalid, they really threw the ball back into the court of the Correctional Services Commissioner. So there were several issues that court matter was dealing with. One, it was looking at how far do the powers of the Correctional Services Commissioner extend, because the DA AfriForum and the Helen Suzman Foundation all believe that, Arthur Fraser, the former Correctional Services Commissioner, went beyond the scope of his powers when he unilaterally went against the Medical Advisory Board's parole board's decision to say that actually they don't believe that the former president should be released out on medical parole. It also then looked on the issue of, whether or not the time that the former president spent out on medical parole should actually count as a part of his 15-month, jail sentence. And that's really the crux of what we're expecting today, because according to, the Correctional Services Act, you need to serve about a quarter of your sentence to be able to qualify for normal parole. So the former president served about a month and a half, just under 2 months of his sentence before being granted medical parole. So if, for instance, he is, the Correctional Services Commissioner, Tobakale, says he must go back, he'd spend another month and a half to qualify for the 3 months, which is about a quarter of the 15-month jail sentence. And I think the other issue that was dealt with, of course, was, the issues of whether or not now this medical parole board now, whether or not its powers will be more enforceable, and whether this decision is just mainly advisory, or whether or not it actually is empowered to have the decision that it makes to be enforceable by the Correctional Services Department.
And of course, a highly contentious issue also, which has divided societies. What happens if indeed he does go back to jail? We mentioned that the last time that happened, there was a little bit of unrest in the country. I don't even know if the word little bit is a fair phrase to use. But given that the masterminds to date have not been arrested, given that the arrests that have been happening is somebody who took a basket from a popular shopping store, and those kind of people going to the courts, but nothing about the masterminds of that unrest.
Well, you remember that there was a panel report led by Dr. Sandy Africa looking at the underlying causes of the 2021 unrest. And one of the things that it noted, it in fact described what happened in 2021 as an orgy of violence. Over 300 lives were lost. Now, we need to go back then to what the court had said at the time when they issued, the order to say that the former president must be arrested. They had said that he had shown a flagrant disregard for the law, and that as somebody who was meant to be the personification of the Constitution at some point by being the president, they cannot allow even the idea of that there's no equality before the law. So the upholding of the rule of law, the public confidence in the country's laws was something that the judgment also noted, and also really trying to emphasize the separation between politics and the judiciary. Of course, now we know that there is still, that concern around whether our intelligence services has actually woken up and actually if they would be ready for an eventuality if the Correctional Services Department decides later on today that, in fact, the former president does need to complete his 15-month his jail sentence and perhaps only be eligible for normal parole after he's entered into his third month. And so these are issues that I think that would be, considered by the police commissioner. But we've already seen a report that, the National Defence Force as well as some police in KwaZulu-Natal already prepared and on standby if the decision is to send the former president back to jail.
Ziyanda Ngcobo, thank you very much. Looking forward to that decision.